All right, good day, guys. So this is this video is going to be an extension to our table class. So we already talked about how to create a basic table, and if you still remember, um, you'll be using the table tag, and inside the table tag, you are going to generate each row or that you want there for your table. And inside each row you are going to generate the cell. So if you look at my screen here where I have this basic table, so in order for us to have this type of table, the first thing you need to have is to generate the table by tapping the table tag that I have on this line 25. But if you notice, there's an attribute that is supplied to it, which is this border with a value of 1, and that's what is generating the line around our table. So without this border, don't have any line around the table by default with HTML5. So, but for now, we're going to be using this border so that we can see what is going on around our table. But when you are really using this table later on, this border won't be there because you are going to customize everything through the CSS there. But for now, we are going to add this border so that we can see what is going on with the table. And inside the table, you are going to be generating the row, which is the TR that I have here on line 26. And inside the row, you are going to generate the cell. So each box is a cell that I mentioned last time. So the SN is a one cell, this is another cell, this is another cell, and so forth like that. But I told you we have two types of cell. We have the heading cell, which is what you'll be using the TH to generate, and we have the table data, which is the second type of cell where you are going to be using this TD. So when you need a normal cell, just like this one, Ficrant 890 and this 85%, these are normal cell. So when you want to generate any of this cell, you are going to use 3. But if you want to generate any of these heading cell, like this serial number, name, mark, percentage, then you are going to use TH to generate that. And we talked about all this in last time. But today, I want to focus on this missing cell, the spanning of row and columns, because at some time you want to work with some table. This table doesn't really have any value for some cell there. But if this doesn't have value, that doesn't mean you are going to leave it there like that. So there's a way of handling any cell that is having a missing data. So for example, here now, the same table that I have up there, I will just copy it. So just copy the same, or let me just copy only the first two rows like this, and let me close it. Then inside this table of missing cell, so let me paste it, and if I paste, we should have the details under it. So we have two rows, but now I want to have the third row, but there's going to be a problem with this third row. The problem there is that I know the serial numbers to be 2, but I don't know the name yet, or I even know the name. This is going to be let me use ADBC like this. That is the name. But now I don't know the mark, and at the same time I know about the percentage. So the only thing I know about is percentage, which is 85% here. But what I don't know there is the mark. But if I save it now, there's going to be a problem. As you can see, here we have 1, we have frequent, we have 890, and we have 85%, which means this one is working correctly because we have the necessary cell. But if you look at the second one or the third row there, we have this 2, then we have the name, but there's a problem. We don't know the mark, but we know the percentage there. And when you type it in this form, you are not going to get what you are expecting to see on the screen, because the way the browser is going to arrange all this your TD or TH is depending on the way you type it here. So the first one will come first, and that's the reason why 2 is showing here. The second one, which is this ADBC here, which is second item, so it's going to be second cell for this third row. Again, the browser is saying this TD of 85% as the third one, and since it's the third one on the list, it means it's going to be under the mark. But this is not what we want. We want this 85% to be under the percentage, not under the mark. How do you do it? What is happening here is that there is a cell missing, and we said it's missing, the mark cell is missing. And anytime you have a cell that is missing, you don't just leave it out like that. What you always do is to type that cell where it's supposed to be. The only difference there is that you don't put any content inside it. So if you look at this, my line 105, you see that I'm having the TD, which is going to represent the mark. But currently, I don't have anything for it. And this is what we call missing cell data here. So anytime your cell is missing a data, you don't just leave it out. You're still going to type that TD or TH, depending on which one you're using there. But inside it, you are going to leave it empty. And if I save it down, so the browser knows what to do automatically, because the TD that is holding 2 is the first one, so it's going to arrange it first. The TD that is holding at ABC, that's the second one, then it's going to put it under the name. Now it's seeing this TD, but with nothing inside it, so it will still use it as the third one, but it will leave it empty. And as you can see from here, this stuff it's empty right now, and the reason it's empty is because the TD on line 105 is not having any data, and the last TD here will be under the percentage, just like the way it's supposed to be. So anytime you have a cell and that cell is not having any data yet, what you do is that you still type the cell, and you just leave the cell empty without putting anything inside it. And once the data is back, then you can now put the data back there like that. And if I save it down, you see that the data is going to be filling, and if there's no data, then you leave it empty, so that by the time the data is back, then you just fix it there. But the major thing here is that anytime you have a cell that is not having data, you still have to type that cell, just that you leave it empty, not that you remove it entirely. If you remove it entirely, the browser is not going to arrange it the way you want it, because the way this thing arrange all the cell is based on the way you type it from the HTML there. So the first one will only come first, the second one will come second, and so forth like that. So which means any cell that is not having data, you still type them, but you don't put anything inside it. And you see on the screen here now, everything is now balanced there like that. So this is how this thing works. So when you have a cell that is not having any data, for example, assuming I don't know these two now, I can just leave it empty, and you see that it will still arrange it properly, but there won't be any data inside it like that. So, and this is how missing data work, because this thing is very important, because we are going to be using later on for this row and colon spanning, or anytime you have a cell that is not holding any data at all. So the missing cell is very important, because if you don't arrange it properly like this thing would not come out properly too on the screen. So another thing that we have there is this row spanning and colon spanning. So we have row spanning and colon spanning. And when you're talking about the row spanning and colon spanning, this is the process of you joining multiple rows or columns together. So if I go online here, row and col span table like this, you are going to see some of the sample of the table that have this functionality. And again, to some of the assignments that is inside the PDF too are based on this row spanning and column spanning. I'm coming. Yeah, so if you look at what I'm showing you now on the browser, look at this table. So look at this room tariff. Look at the way it is. It's joining multiple columns together here. So this room tariff is not just on this line, but it is centered across all the columns that we have there. So here we have column 1. So let me use my line. If you have to look at it, this is going to be our column 1. This is going to be the column 2. This is column 3. This is column 4. And this is column 5. But this room tariff now for this top is joining all of them together. So here now, what we say here is that this room tariff is spanning multiple columns. And how many columns is it spanning, or how many columns is it joining together? It's joining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The same thing too, look at this deluxe. So if you look at this deluxe too, so the deluxe is at the top of this AC, and this is at the top of this non-AC. So this deluxe now is joining 2 columns together. So this is the first column is joining, and this is the second column. So it's joining both of them together as one. The same thing with this executive here too. So there is AC and there is non-AC under it. So how many columns this one too is joining or is spanning? So when you say span or join, both of them are referring to the same thing. But you can actually join or span multiple columns together or multiple rows together. So this executive now is spanning or is joining this column, and at the same time is joining this column together as one. And that's the reason why you see that the line here, this line is supposed to touch up, and since the line is not touching up here, it means this executive now is joining these two columns together or joining these two cells together as one. The same thing with this tariff. So this is normally the line supposed to be here. This line too is supposed to run across this one, supposed to get up to, or let me clean everything and start from the start. So here now, the line is supposed to be here, but it's not getting there because this room tariff has already joined it together. The same thing to this line that I stopped here, supposed to get to this deluxe, but the deluxe has already joined it together. And the same thing too with tariff, it's not showing too because it has been joined together. Here too, the line is supposed to run across, but it is not there. And the same thing, this last line supposed to run across like this too, but they are not there. Why are they not there? Because some of this cell are combining with the other cell just to act like one cell. And how do you do something like this? That's where the row and column spanning comes in there. So the first thing you need to look at is that what is the total number of row that we have there, and what is the total number of column you have there if you want to span or join multiple columns or row together. So just like the way you have for the column one, then you can have for the row too, just like this room type. So this room type, it's joining this row, and again it's joining this row, and at the same time it's joining this row. So which means this room type is joining three rows together. So this is the first one, the second one, and the third one, and it's joining all of them together as one. This is what we call row span. So when you are joining row together, we call it row span, and when you are joining columns together, then we call it co-span. And these are the attributes you'll be using on your TD or TH to specify the number of row or the number of column that you want to join together there. So now if we are to do something like this, so for example, I want to have a table in this form. So I want to have a table. Let me use another color so that it can show. I'm showing black right now. So assuming I have this table here, and this table, I want to have something like this. Normally, your table, it's going to run across, but that's not what I want now. This is what I want right now. So look at this table. So if you look at this table, the line is supposed to go up, but the line is not there. Why? Because it's now joining this one and this second column together as one. So which means here I'm going to have one like this. Here I'm going to have two, and here I'm going to have three. So if you look at the one, the line is on running across because this one is joining them together, and this is what we call co-span here. So when you are joining from left to right, we call it co-span, and when you are joining from top to bottom, we call it row span. Please listen to what I just said now. When you are joining from left to right, that's cool. You cannot join from right to left. No, you can only join from left to right. You can't do it the opposite way. So if you are joining from left to right, you cannot do it right to left. It's not possible. So anytime you want to join any two cells together using column there, then it have to start from the left. So the left, you always start counting from the left, then you count towards the right. The same thing too for the row. So assuming we have a table like this, and instead of us to span the column, now we want to span the row. So I have this line joining down like this. So I have this one and I have this. So if you are to look at this one now, this is what we call row span. So this is what we call row span. How is it row span? So if you look at it, this line is supposed to run across, so which means this is your row 1, this is going to be your row 2, and this is going to be your row 3. But instead of this thing to be like this one is not joining both of them together as one value. So it's joining them together as one value, and this is what we call row span. So instead of this one to be 2, is now one item. So which means here is now going to be 2. This is going to be the 3. This is going to be 4. That's a cell, and this is going to be 5. So here now this is 1. So this is 2, and this is 3. So if you are looking at this one is joining from left to right. So it's joining from left to right. While this one is joining from top, is joining it to bottom. So when you are dealing with vertical one, this is what we call row. So when you are dealing with vertical, this is what we call row. And when you are dealing with horizontal, that means you are moving from left to right, this is what we call column. And how do you do all this thing? I will get into the code now, and you see how you can merge multiple cells together in horizontal form, which means column, or in this row, which means you are talking about the vertical direction there, like that. So let's see how we can do this table here. But before I do this complex one, it would be nice if I can do the simple one first before joining into the, or before going into this bigger one here, because this one is using both the row and the column together at the same time. But you can actually have them separately, not that they will be the same. So for example here, look at this table here. So if you look at this table, this is one of your spanning here. So if you look at it, this is your row 1. So here we have row 1. So this is our row 1. The line is too big. Shit, let me delete, pick a smaller. So this is our row 1, and this, let me pick another color. So this is going to be our row 1, this is going to be our row 2, and this is going to be our row 3. Again, this is going to be your column 1, this is column 2, and this is column 3. This is how the table is supposed to be normally. But if you look at this down one here, you see that this one is spanning 2 columns together. So this one is spanning 2 columns together. How do I know that it is column? How do I know? It's because it's moving from left to right. So it's moving from left to right. The same thing with this one too. So this one too is spanning columns because it's moving from here to here. But assuming it's moving from top to the bottom now, that's where you talk about row. But this one now is all about column spanning. And how do you do something like this? So the first thing we need to do is to generate the table. So the first thing we need to do is to generate the table, so which is something I've already prepared down. And inside our table, we need that our first row. And inside our first row, that's where you have this column 1, column 2, column 3. And if you look at the type of the cell they are using there, this is heading cell. So here now, I need to use my TH, and inside it, I will have column 1. Doesn't need to be this. You can use your TD too, just that I'm using what is there. And if I save it and go back to our page, you're going to see that we have this column 1, column 2, and column 3, which is our first row. So what do we have next? We have this second row. But if you look at this second row, we are supposed to have 3 items there, but it's only 2. Because normally, look at this first one, we have 3 TH. So 1, 2, 3. So that means when we are dealing with the second row too, we need to have another 3 cells. But if you look at it right now, we already have 2 cells. What is going on there? It's because this first cell is spanning multiple columns together. So it's joining the column of this first one and this second one together. So, and in order for you to do it here, you are still going to type 2, or you are going to talk to this one to cover up 2 space instead of 1 space. If you look at it, each one of them always cover up one space, but you can actually talk to them to cover up more than 1 space, and that's where your spanning comes in. So for this second one now, I'm going to have my TD because the data there is just normal data, where we have row 1, columns 1 to 2. That is the data there. Again, we have row 1 and we have column 3. But now if I save it and go back to our page, it's not going to look like that. So look at it, something is missing here. So this row 1, column 3 is supposed to be under this, while this row 1, column 1 to 2 is supposed to cover up this column 1 and it's supposed to cover up this column 2. So how do we talk to this one now that we want to span? Don't forget, where you are spanning, it's only starting from left to right, not from right to left. You cannot span from right to the left. You have to come from the left side. So here now we want to join this one, this row now, we want to join it to this one so that this one can be shifted to the third one. So how do we talk to it? We just need to supply the attribute on it, which is going to be co-span. So when you are joining from left to right, you use co-span. And this co-span is the attribute that is supplied to your TD or TH. And inside it, you supply the number of column or the row that you want to join. Since here, I only want to join 2. So if I put 2 there and save, as you can see now, this row 1 column 1 to 2 is now under these two columns, because that's what I gave it there. It should kind of join two columns together, and since it's joining two, then it's to shift this third one or this last one here to this section that we have there. I'm coming. Let me use my BR under this side so we can have more room at the bottom part of this, because it's too jam packed to the end of it. Yeah, so now I have more room, and let me duplicate this line more so that I can have enough space. Yeah, so if you look at it now, this our column, before it have this co-span, the way it is before is that it's only taking one. So by default, each column or each cell are only going to take one box, but at some time you want one cell to take multiple cells, but you need to know the direction that you are dealing with. If you are dealing from left to right, that's co-span, but if you are dealing from top to bottom, then you are dealing with the row span. But here now we want to join this cell, or this is column 1, this is column 2, so we want this single item here now to join both this first and the second column together. In order for you to do that, we need to give it this co-span, and you supply the number of column that you want to join together. And once you save it, as you can see, so this is 1 2, so it's joining 2 together. If I want it to join 3, then I will supply 3 here. If I want it to join 4, I will supply 4, and so forth like that. And as you can see, it's not joining 3 together. So what is there before, if you don't supply this in, is 1, so which means just typing it like this is just useless. Once you put 1 there, it's just useless, because that is what is there by default. Or you can start joining 2 or more columns together so that you can have the functionality that you want then. And lastly, we have this third row. Again, I'm going to have another row, but if you look at it, inside this one we only have one cell, but this single cell now is joining multiple columns together. So it's joining column 1, column 2, and column 3 together. So here I'm going to have a TD, and the data there is row 2, columns 1 to 3 like this. But if I save it, it's not going to work like that by default, because by default it only take one column. So in order for it to join with the other column, because if you look at it now, the other one are not joined together, but we want it to join along with the other one. But how many? So 1 2 3. So here now this one is going to have co-span of 3, and if I save it, you see that it's not joining the 3 of them together as one. So here now we match this column 1, column 2, and column 3 cell together for this particular row. And again, I can continue like that. Maybe the other one now, they are not joining at all. So this is going to be row 3 like that. This is going to be row 3, and if I save it, you see that the cell are balanced. But if any of the cell is missing, don't forget, if any of the cell data is missing, you still need to type it, but you don't put anything there. And as you can see, it's still balanced. But if you remove it, then this thing is not going to arrange it the way you are expecting it to arrange it for you. So, but what if I want this row 3 to cover up the remaining space that is left? So here now, I can just come here, give it co-span and 2. Why is it 2? Because don't forget, it's only starting from the left where you have the data. So this is 1, and this is the second one. So that means I'm spanning 2 cells together. And as you can see now, it has joined that column 2 and column 3 together. And this is how column span work. So the same way you can do for co-span, you can do it too for row span. But here now, you are not dealing with moving from left to right. You are not dealing with moving from top to the bottom there. So let me look for the one that deal with the rows here, because I don't want to bring it what's wrong. Let me pause the video until I have the one I'm looking for. All right, so this is another one here, and if we are looking at this table here, we are going to see this one is using both the row and column span here, but I only stop at the one for the row span because that's the only one I want to focus on. I'll forget about the last one here, which is dealing with the cell, which is dealing with the column. So if you look at it, this is going to be our first row. What's wrong with my mouse? So this is our first row, this is the second row, this is the third row. See that the only row that I want to deal with there. But if you look at this second and the third row, that first cell is combining them together. So if you look at this first cell of the second and the third row, is combining them together as one. And this is what we refer to as row span, because it's joining it from the top downward. So this one now is joining it from the left to the right. So when you are moving from the left to the right, this is your co-span that I just talked about. But now if you are moving from the top to the bottom, you are joining two sets together from top to the bottom, then we call it row span. So how do you do this? This is the same thing that you did for your co-span. The difference is just that you'll be supplying another attribute here, which is going to be row span. So here now, I'm going to have my TD, I'm going to have my row, which is a first tr GM, and again inside it I'm going to have th. And why am I using th? Because the text at the top there is bold and it is centered, and you know what to use anytime you have something like that. Again, this is the second cell of that first row, and this is the third, and this is the fourth one. So if I save it and go back to our page, we should have our table with our first row of this column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4 there. So the next thing we need to do is to move to this second row. But if you look at the second row, there, something is happening there. But for now, let me just type it normally. So if I type it, and we're going to have TD, because this one is just normal data there. So inside it, I have row 1, cell 1 like that. So if I go to the next one, what did I have there? I have row 1, cell 2. Don't forget, I'm still dealing with the first with the second row. And under the second row, what we have there is this row 1, cell 1. So this row 1, cell 1 can never be for the last one. It's always for the first one that you want to span together. You cannot move from the bottom to the top. You can only move from the top to the bottom. So since you can only move from the top downward, that means this data is supposed to be inside the first one. Then after you are done with this cell, we have the second cell, we have the third cell, and we have the fourth cell for that second row. Again, I'm going to have the third cell, I'm going to have the fourth cell, and if I save it, everything will still look normal there. Everything will still look normal on the table, because now we have row 1 and the cell 1 and so forth like that. But now we want to move to the third row. Now we want to move to the third row. But if you look at the third row, nothing is inside the first cell. So nothing is inside the first cell. What is there is still what we've already typed from the second cell there. So what do we need to do? Anytime you have a cell that are merging together like this, what is happening there is that here, the first one that is coming from this second row has already taken that space. So which means the only thing you have left is just this row 2, cell 2. Don't forget, we've already typed this row 1, cell 1 for the second row. And since we've already typed it there, so it's that one that will now match to this second one here. And since it's going to match to the second one, that means you don't have this space again. The only thing you have left is this row 2, cell 2, row 2, cell 3, and row 2, cell 4 are there like that. So if you look at it, we already have this row 1, cell 1 for this second row. So when you are going to the third one now, I actually have this other stuff there. The only thing you are left with is this other data, which is this row 2, cell 2, row 3, row 2, cell 3, and so forth like that. Let me type it. So here now, for this third one, you don't have access to this cell again, because this one is going to span it. And since this one is going to span in, so it means this is what we have left. So here now, I'm going to have the row. So here I'm going to have my TD, which is going to be row 2, cell 2. Again, I'm going to have cell 3, and I'm going to have cell 4. But now if I save it, this is not going to look right. It's not going to look right. So look at it. This row 2 is supposed to be under column 2. This row 2, cell 2 is supposed to be under column 2. Row 2, cell 3 is supposed to be under column 3. Row 2, cell 4 is supposed to be under column 4. But it's not there. Why? Because this row 1, cell 1 is not spanning the row that is supposed to span, because I've not really used the attribute. So in order for this thing to work, we need to talk to this cell that we want it to span the downward cell that is under it. So how many cells do you want to span together downward? I want to span 2. So how do you talk to it? You just need to go to that cell and give it row span. Here now we are spanning downward, and since you are spanning downward, what you use is row span. If you are spanning from left to the right, then you use co-span. So how many do I want to span together? I want to span 2, or I want to join 2. And as you can see now, what it's going to do is that from that top one, it's going to join two together downward. If it is co-span, it's going to join two together to the left. So the difference between co-span and row span. Can you see what is that happening now? So when you use co-span, it's joining from the left to the right. But when you use row span, it will join from top downward. So there is difference between row span and co-span. Row span, it should start from that line downward based on the number of rows that you want to span together. But if it is co-span, it will start from the left and it will keep joining to the right based on the number of cell that you want to join together. Then knowing these two now, you can now combine it together to do other rows and column spanning. So let me bring back the stuff that we have before. So let me close this one and let me bring this in again back, and from there now we should be able to do this two together like that. So here now, let me close this one and let me duplicate this, close this one. So this one should now be example like this, and this one is going to combine both of them together now. So this one should be example, and let me delete everything that is inside it because we are starting from scratch. So now here we are going to have our first row there, but if you look at it, under first row we only have this room tariff. So here I'm going to use my th because it is heading there. So I have this room tariff. So that's the only item I have inside that first row. I'm done with the first row. So moving to the second row, so I'm going to have another TR. But if you look at the second row, we have room type, we have deluxe, and we have this executive. These are the only three items for that second row. So we have this room. Don't forget, when you are spanning, the first one is the one that always have the data, not the second one. The same thing with this deluxe too. When you want to span it later on, or when you are typing it, is this first one that have it, but is spanning to the second one. The same thing with this executive too. Is this one that have the data, but is spanning to the second one. And that's what is happening with this room type too. The room type is actually on the second row, but is spanning with the third and the fourth row there, like that. So here now, I'm going to have my TH, because if you look at that room type, it is bold and it is centered. So again, to that deluxe too, the lux is the same thing, it is centered. So the lux, like this, and again too, we have this executive. But why am I putting all this in? I've already explained it now. So the reason it's like that is because look at the line. So if you are to draw this table correctly, this line is supposed to get here, and since this line is supposed to get here, that means the room type is here. So again, to look at this deluxe, if I draw this line too in a correct way, see that the deluxe is supposed to be here. The same thing too with executive, is going to be here, but it's not joining with the other one, and that's the reason why it look at save is at the center. It's not at the center, it is here, but because it's spanning multiple cell there, it have to go to the center of the two cell so that it balance the center of the two cell. So that's the reason why it looks like this, but you are going to type it normally. So if I save this code and go to the page, it won't look nice for now because we've not, as you can see, the room tariff is not spanning the other cell. But how many cells is it going to span, and in which direction? If you look at it, it's moving from the left to the right, so that means co-span. But how many cells are you joining? So it's going to join 1, it's going to join 2, it's going to join 3, it's going to join 4, and it's going to join 5. So which means this room tariff now, we're supposed to give it this co-span of 5. So it's going to join 5 columns together. And if I go back there, as you can see, it's not up to 5 yet. Why is not up to 5? Even though I give it 5, it's not up to 5 because this thing is based on the total number of column that you have there. So by the time we fill in other one, you see that it will be adjusting until it gets to 5. But currently, it stopped at 3 because the maximum number of column that I have here is 3. And since the maximum number of column here is 3, then to stop at that 3. But if I add 4, it will get to 4. If I add 5, it will get to this 5. But if I add the 6 later on, it won't leave 5 because the maximum have to be 5. So it can't go more than that. And that's why I always love to arrange everything first before applying this co-span or row span. So I'm going to remove it right now. and leave everything the way it is, which means everything is just going to be like this. But later on, once all the cell are arranged, then I will start adding the col and the row span into it. So here now, I'm done with the second row. I need to move into the third row. And if you look at the third row there, what do you have there? So if I bring all this line again, if I have to look at the third row, this line is supposed to be here. But don't forget, the room type is already on this second row. So that means the only thing you have left is this AC, non-AC, AC, and non-AC are there like that. Those are the items we have on that row. And again, they are bold and they are centered. So that means we need to use our TH again. So here I'm going to have the AC, and at the same time I'm going to have the non AC like this, and from there I just need to duplicate the two cells because they are the same thing like that. And if I save it now, you see that we are going to have them as that second, but it's not arranged correctly right now because we've not really spanned them. And by the time we started with the spanning, you see that everything will fall into their normal area. So the last one that we have there is this 1005, 1000, 2005, and this 1005. That's the next row. Because that one too is a room type that is covering this space here. So the only thing you have access to there is this other number. So again, I'm going to have the TR, but here now it is going to be TD. So 1005. So here we have 1000. The next one I have 2500. This one should be 1000. So the next one I have 1500. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4. But you might be looking at something is missing because it's supposed to be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the reason it's not 5 is because this one has already taken 1 out of it. And since this one have taken 1, then just means this cell or this row only have 4 left. Because it must, by the time you combine everything together, the total number of columns must match the highest number of columns there. So since this is 4 and this is 1, and the highest one is 5, yes, then everything is balanced. But now if I go to the page, it's not going to be arranged correctly. Why? Because we've not really spanned all the necessary cell we need to span. The first one we need to span is this room tariff because it's supposed to cover up 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So something is still it's supposed to cover up to 5 there. So here now, what do we need to do? I need to give it co-span. So I need to give it co-span. How many? 5. So now if I give it 5, it's kind of like get to the end like that. So let me look at it again. So we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, and we have 4, and we have 5. But here now is telling us that we only have 1, 2, 3, 4. Why is it like that? It's because we need to talk to this deluxe too to cover up 2 cell. This executive too, it needs to cover up 2 cell because look at it right now, it's not covering up what is supposed to cover up there. So now going to this deluxe, we need to give it co-span of 2. What am I giving it to? So look at the design. So this deluxe now, it's covering this AC and non-AC. But if you look at it here, it's only under this non-AC. So it's not arranged correctly. So if I save it, it's going to be under this non-AC and AC. But if you look at it too, it's not correct. Why is it not correct? It's because this AC here is supposed to be here, not with here. And why is it not there? It's because this room type, we need to span it downward. So we need to span the room type downward. But how many is it spanning? This is 1, 2, 3. So that means this our room type supposed to have row span of how many? 3. And if I save it now and go back to the page, you see that everything started coming in shape. As you can see now, the deluxe is now having AC and non-AC under it. The same thing too, we need to do it for this executive here because that one too is supposed to cover this AC and this non-AC, and that means 2. So this one too is going to be co-span, and if I put 2 there, you see that it's going to cover up this AC and non-AC. And as you can see, we have our table just like the way it is here. So we have the deluxe, we have room type, we have the room tariff, we have 15, 1000, 25, and so forth now like that. And this is all about the spanning of rows and the columns there. And again, this is what you're now going to be using to solve some of the assignment that is under this week 2 are there. So there's some assignment under this week 2 that deal with this row spanning and column spanning like this one. So I'm going to send it to the group so that you can work on them like that. So that will be all. Just 40 minutes. So that will be all. Thank you.